Well, I mean, we still feel like we are kind of new in the investment scene, knowing that we want to do the things a little bit differently. As a German company, we've decided to really focus on Africa and invest mostly in early stage companies, startup, and some SMEs now. And I would like to just illustrate a little bit where we act to follow what Gilles just mentioned. It is true that there have been a lot of things that happen recently where organizations start to develop incubator structure in order to incentivize African youth to create their own company and become independent, etc. And there was a lot of fund that was allocated to build those structures so that they could have a starting point. But what's happening, and the reality is that most of the funds that are available at a much later stage as well. That means there is a clear gap between the moment when a startup is going out of the incubator and is going, I would say, out of the seed stage, more or less, to the moment where this company will be at the growth stage where investors would be interested to go in and where most of the funds are looking at it. And what's happening is that this gap is where you have the most company and the most potential value created. And what is also very funny is that for all entrepreneurs that are in the room here, they all know that they call this space the valley of death. That is what is very paradoxal, because this is where you have most of the value, and this is where actually you have the biggest risk of dying when you're a company. So at Greentec Capital, we have decided to really address and focus on this space where the need of fund can be between 50 to, let's say, to almost 300,000 or $500,000. Because in that space, you have a need of funding, but you also have a need of capacity building and knowledge transfer. Because for a lot of entrepreneurs that are in Africa, when they create their business, they have a clear idea about the solutions, because they are basically identifying a need and a problematic that is happening on the ground. And at the end of the day, they say, okay, I have a solution that can solve this problem, and I have a certain understanding of a technology that I have the possibility to access to solve this problem. And what we believe is that to help those entrepreneurs, we have to get away a little bit only from the how much money you need, but to the question that is, in our sense, more relevant, what you need the money for. And this opens more perspective. Because when you ask the question what you need the money for, often there will be a quick discussion about, I need it for this technology because this technology will allow me to run my business, make my business grow, structure my business, and make it scalable. And if you go in that perspective, it opens another investment possibility and investment structure. By doing that, we've been able to incentivize, we're working with some German companies that have been able actually to invest in African companies that were too small that they wouldn't have identified, but who were okay to collaborate with those companies, give them access to the technology, support them with the knowledge transfer. And what we've been what we tried to set up is to create a deal where they could access equity within those young companies, so that those companies will have their technology to fit with the African market, and in the same time those companies will also have the opportunity to benefit from the access to experts, etc., etc. So we really believe that for that space, which is quite big, a combination of funding, knowledge transfer, and capacity building is very important. The other aspect also, and I really want to emphasize on this area, is that when we look at the different structures that are available, and also this is what our colleague from ANDE mentioned, is that a lot of structures are looking at how we're going to support fund to help those structures. But those structures are too far away from the reality of a fund. And therefore, we think that it's important to be able to build an ecosystem which allow them to reach a certain stage, reach a certain level of quality, and then develop and being able then to be eligible for a fund at a high level. By using this approach of investment, so far we've been investing, I think, in 11 companies. We are now present mostly in the English-speaking countries, so Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda. And we also have Cameroon, and now we're just also starting to bring this investment approach into French-speaking countries, where we'll start to be starting at the end of the year.
Okay, Eric, where do you find the projects? Question number one. And the second is, how did you get through the Death Valley yourself?
The first thing is that obviously in the Death Valley you have plenty of projects. But what we try to identify are, we have an investment thesis. When you look at Africa, everybody's talking about the demographic. And they see that sometimes as a risk. We see that as a huge opportunity, because a lot of solutions that are developed by entrepreneurs in Africa are to solve a problem of a certain community. This community can be 50,000 person, 100,000 person. What they don't have as a resources is the capacity to scale up that business in order to reach 1 million person. So when we look at the company that are solutions for a small community, we try to see how can funding and the resource that we can allocate to them will allow them to go to another stage. In our case, we're not investing in every sectors. We invest in renewable energy, health, education, ICT, and agriculture.
How did you make people believe in your idea?
The way we started is basically, we just took one company. We took one company in Rwanda. The Rwanda proposed a kind of an easy environment, I would say, for investment. And we invest in this company. We create partnership with German company to implement their technology in this local solution and local technology in order to scale up this technology in different countries. And it's by proving by example, okay. And then we were able to have other companies as well.
Okay, so you have to find the first example, the first lighthouse in the desert. Okay, Randall, we have been speaking yesterday already quite a bit. You're working a lot with incubators and accelerators, and I said what I said in the beginning, that really what I want to know is, and I think what we need to work on somehow, is after all that accelerating, now taking Eric's picture on top, it's like we're accelerating them into the Death Valley, and then how they're going to get out of that.
So yeah, I guess the first thing I would say is at ANDE, the Aspen Network of Development Entrepreneurs, where I work, and I say this knowing there's an accelerator on the panel, we're not sure that accelerators work very well. We see accelerators popping up all over the globe, and they are certainly the flavor of the day as it relates to business development services. But what there's not a lot of is data or information to prove that they work. And so we are concerned about that and have launched something called the Global Accelerator Learning Initiative, or GALI, to try to explore that. A pretty comprehensive academic study to look at whether accelerators function, and if so, at what cost in an emerging market context. So let's assume maybe you're a Gearbox firm, which I'm sure is a great success story. And then the question is, well, what happens next? Right? So you get accelerated, you've met your mentors, you've had your experience. And the first thing that I would say is that, unfortunately, most investment funds don't actually look to accelerators as the main source of their deal flow. In some cases that's true, but often it's not. They're normally building it through their own networks. And they're building it through their own ties, their own due diligence work on the ground. So there is an issue of finding good deals, right? So just because you've been accelerated doesn't always mean that you will have met the right potential investor in your firm. And so there's a lot of work being done in communities across Africa and other emerging markets to help build the connections, not just to investors, but also as an entrepreneur, you need access to lawyers and accountants and other technical system providers. So we need to do more as an industry to promote that kind of litigation. And on the finance side, what we find, unfortunately, is that there is still often a disconnect between the expectations of the existing investment funds that are out there and the types of returns that many of these companies can actually offer. So most investment funds, interested in your perspective, talk about getting IRRs of 15 to 20% on their early stage deals in Africa. Most companies, if they're honest, are not likely to be able to offer that. And so you don't see as many deals being done as you would expect, despite the fact that there are lots of really interesting firms. Part of that, we believe, is a mindset shift. We had this discussion yesterday at a different event where many funds are like, we're going to look for the unicorns, right? We want that one or two firms that are going to make my fund profitable. Well, I think that the unicorn hunting is a pretty bad idea if you're focusing in almost any market except for the one that happens to be residing in Silicon Valley. So stop looking for unicorns, start looking for gazelles, which are high growth firms. And better yet, from a development perspective, start looking for rabbits, of which there are lots, right? Rabbits multiply. They're smaller, and they can still grow, and they will create the jobs. So there's, back to your point, there's a mismatch of expectations. And then finally, I'll make one other point. What we at ANDE believe is the biggest challenge facing most entrepreneurs in emerging markets is not capital, but talent. And the biggest issue is trying to find mid-level and senior-level management talent throughout Africa that can actually help grow that firm. And many of these companies, even though they've been accelerated, don't get funding because they don't have a management team which can convince the investment fund that they are worthy of investment.
Randall, thank you so much. I really like it that we have so many pictures we're talking in today, because that's how we remember things, at least I do. Kamau, I know that you're getting a little restless now, but I have to ask you one more thing. Have you been accelerated?
No.
Okay. That's why you're successful then, according to Randall. But, as I said before, Kamau is one of those accelerators, or you are accelerating. How successful are you, or are your companies? Because you're only successful when your companies are accelerated. What's Gearbox doing anyway?
Yeah, Accelerator is just one part of who we are, and we prefer to see ourselves as a platform to allow for the development of hardware-oriented companies in Kenya. So, as Gunnar said earlier, and I was nodding a lot as we spoke, manufacturing is really very important, even though a lot of people see perhaps opportunities in the post-industrial era right now. Being able to make things in an economy that you need yourself is very, very important. And so I spent a lot of years teaching at the University of Nairobi, teaching engineering students and seeing very innovative ideas not going very far. So they didn't really manage to get commercial conversion of their ideas. And so within the university, it was very difficult to create a bridge to the commercial sector. So I set up with people who I think a lot of people here are familiar with iHub in Nairobi, which is a center for especially software-oriented businesses. And we agreed that a hardware hub similar to iHub would be very important. And so that's what we are. We started that in 2014. And prior to that, I had set up a Fab Lab, which is an idea out of MIT, which there are about 1,000 Fab Labs around the world, actually quite a few more I think by now, which I see as a stepping stone to what Gearbox is. And so this platform gives access to people who have good hardware ideas to be able to access machines that they wouldn't normally have access to, and also the knowledge on how best to use those machines to make a good prototype. And so we're not even yet at the stage where we're saying we'd like you to be able to do production in our space. We believe that if you can make a good prototype, and the prototype can help you to do a pilot. And that pilot then can stand as something that can attract investors and say, well, here probably is a rabbit, if I use the terminology that was presented earlier.
Might turn out to be a unicorn.
And who might end up being a gazelle, buffalo, unicorn, whatever. And so we're very interested in making that happen. We're also very interested in allowing access to people who are not traditionally who you'd think would be using our space, who I think engineers, conventionally everybody would think use the space. But there's many people who have an engineering mind but don't have the actual education in engineering. And in Africa we see that all over the place. They invent things, and usually those things that they invent don't meet the mark in terms of the sophistication to become commercially widespread or scale. And so we're very interested in developing out of those sorts of people's makers. So to use a term that a lot of people agree that a maker is somebody who doesn't have that background, but is able to use modern tools to do things that would be able to be commercialized. For example, electronics, coding, without necessarily going deep into any of those areas. So we present that opportunity for both engineers and makers in our space. We're also very interested in the new development that we're beginning to see happen. So, of course, demography has been mentioned many times. The fact that right now Africa's population is 1.2 billion. At the turn of the millennium, it was half of that, and in 2050, it's going to be double that. 1 in 4 people in the world will be African. And depending on how you look at that, that could be an enormous opportunity that was said already on this stage a couple of times. I remember Tutu saying that. And I think that's the way that we see it. And we've been approached by companies in this country like Bosch and others to see, well, can you help us to develop our supply chain? We want to manufacture in Africa. We know that the market is going to be there over the years coming. And we wonder whether we're going to be able to find partners in the countries where we want to set up factories who can be part of our supply chain. And what I really liked about particularly Bosch, but also Merck and a couple of others, is that they're interested in actually helping companies who show the potential to become suppliers, to help them to actually come up to the level that they require to be suppliers. And so that approach, I think, is really useful. And with that kind of approach, Gearbox stands as a very good platform to enable people who have that potential to be able to develop and grow into that size.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good cooperation, right?